Yeah, thank you very much. Now we have Chris to represent Granny Kate. Chris, here you come.
Your mother adored her Welsh grandmother, Guy, who was your great-grandmother. She came from a farming family, and from them you seem to have inherited a love of animals and plants and natural things. Guy's grandmother...
Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last? And too soon? Tell me, Eva, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?
Oh, thank you, Tara. Thank you very much. She hugged me, nobody else did. Well, as we said, there was a very complicated start to Eva's life. It was a very stressful time in the run-up to the birth. There were lots of scans that showed up lots of very serious possible problems, but they all ended up living in the Royal Brompton, where Eva came under the care of respiratory specialist Dr. Andrea McKee, who is here. Come down, Andrea, because you saved this child's life. And don't fall, because there were no real doctors here.
The whole friendship was full of swastikas, flags, notices, don't buy in Jewish shops, don't go to the Jewish doctors or the Jewish solicitors. When I arrived home, which was also the surgery, a Nazi said to us, "Where are you going?" I did not answer, but closed the door after me. I was halfway up the stairs, and the Nazi came after me and shouted, "Didn't you hear? I asked, where are you going? It's a Jewish doctor." And I replied, "I am Mrs. Jew."
Fanny thought that Eva will miss Boo not being there to teach her the guitar, and Boo to help her deal with her overbearing mother. I'm sorry, Eva, I can't do most of those things, but I might try with that last one if I can.
Adam was made my godfather, and he's been a very good godfather, but I hope to return the favour by being a very good godfather to Eva. I gave her books that I have already read because I thought they were very good, and I hope she thinks they're very good as well. I'm not very good with talking about stuff, so that's all I've got.
You're very good at talking about stuff. Well done. Thank you for all gathering round. As you can hear, I am getting increasingly ill because away from the diesel fumes and pollution and filth of London, where everything is good, down here I'm plagued with asthma and hay fever, and it's all rubbish here. At least it's Devon. At least it's not the full-blown horror that is Cornwall, because once you get down there, it's just. You go through Deliverance and eventually you're into Straw Dogs, aren't you? Straw Dogs was a documentary, I'm here to tell you. And the thing is that at least you admit you're English. They become all nationalistic and all belligerent about not being English. And they're obsessive about the light there in Cornwall. If you ever spoken to them, say, because a lot of artists come here for the light. They like the light here. And I think, I hate to break it to you, we've got light everywhere. They say, oh no, went up to Extra one time, couldn't see a bloody thing up there. But it is an honour and privilege to be asked by Eva to come on this, the occasion of her official naming ceremony. And for those of you who don't know, the way I met Franny was via The Age of Stupid, which was her groundbreaking environmental film, which spectacularly failed to stop climate change. It was a brilliant film, and everything has got much, much worse since it was made. We've now got the Tories desperately trying to be more like UKIP, who of course don't believe climate change is happening at all. And UKIP are it's a very strange name, isn't it? It just doesn't work. United Kingdom Independence Party. It's like British Empire Liberation Organisation. And the Tories are terrified of them. And of course, in America, you've got a growing right-wing thing. You've got a thing called the Tea Party. Now, if you don't know much about the Tea Party, I've done a lot of research into the politics of the Tea Party. And put simply, their philosophy is that the Deadwood stages are heading on over the hill. That's basically it. But within that, there is all manner of mental stuff. Many of them are creationists. They deny Darwin. None of them believe that climate change is caused by fossil fuels because they don't believe in fossils. They don't. They think that God made the fossils and grouted them into cliff tops to confuse geologists, and cliff falls are a punishment for Darwinism. So there's all of that influence in America, and you've got the same sort of political influence in this country, and Cameron is now surrounded by climate change deniers. But our one hope is Ed Miliband, who was personally groomed by none other than Franny Armstrong, because when he was a mere callow environment secretary under Blair, Franny hijacked him and converted him, made him actually come up with a plan that could save the planet. And Franny Armstrong predicted that what would happen was Brown would lose the election, the Tories would get in for a while, and then Miliband would be our next Prime Minister. And tutored by her, he would save the planet. We have yet to see whether that will happen, but he is looking more and more damaged and flustered, Ed Miliband. And that was only the start of his troubles meeting Franny. Since then, his life has spiralled out of control. You have to feel sorry for Ed Miliband. I mean, he's got a Marxist Jewish mother. How much guilt can a boy take, really? How you doing, Mum? How am I doing? Disappointed is how I'm doing. And I speak as a citizen more than another. And he doesn't know what to say. He doesn't know what to say to attack the Conservatives. All he can do is call them posh. That's basically the narrative now. We hate the Tories because they're posh boys. But the term the posh boys was actually coined by the right-wing Tory Nadine Dorries, famous of I'm a Celebrity. And she's the person who started calling them the posh boys. Now, she's an interesting character, Nadine, because she's a right-wing Thatcherite Tory. And she's opposed to abortion on the grounds that it's killing babies, in her view. Whereas Margaret Thatcher herself supported abortion rights because she thought it was killing babies. And of course, you know, Thatcher is, one doesn't want to speak ill of the dead, and she's gone. And I didn't. I thought it's too late to celebrate. There's no point singing Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead when the flying monkeys are running the country. And there was talk that people would dance on her grave, but that would be a terrible thing because, it would be awash with urine, for one thing. But it seems a time to obviously mourn the passing of the People's Pinochet on an occasion like this. But as I say, the thing about attacking the Tories for being posh is it ignores the fact that there is a very honourable tradition of very, very posh lefties. If you think of somebody like Humphrey Lyttelton, who went to Eton College, lifelong socialist, Paul Foot went to Shrewsbury School, lifelong and Tony Benn, of course, went to Westminster. And they're wonderfully, wonderfully posh lefties. And people say they're hypocrites, but they're the opposite of hypocrites, because it would be in their interest to be right-wing, but they know that's just not sporting. I mean proper, really aristocratic public school lefties I'm talking about, not your muckney radicals from minor independent schools. I mean your real tough bullshit. Because what I love about them is most of us are terrified of capitalism. They're not. Because, they've got the confidence of their class. They just think capitalism is rather a poor show. The Tories are an absolute shower. And the thing is about the Tories, it's not that they're posh, it's the horrible kind of posh that they are. Their sense of entitlement. They're just sort of braying hoorays, having a lark, playing at running the country. And it's as though, if anything gets in their way, it's as though it were the first day of the grouse season, and one of the beaters has been shot, and his widow's kicking up a bit of a bloody stink about the whole thing. And now Osborne's got away with it, because he was starting to look troubled. He's got away with his spending review. Ed Balls couldn't think of anything to say, and so he's just looks radiantly relieved and happy. Up until that point, he knew his policies weren't working, which is why he's had to cut harder. And he just looked troubled. He looked like a man who soiled his trousers and hasn't yet decided whether that's a good or bad thing. And Dally Alexander, his sidekick, looked like not so much a rabbit caught in the headlights as a rabbit tied to a chair while Michael Madsen dances round it stuck in the middle with you. And Cable still looks right. Cable is full of self-loathing because he's not a bad man, Vince Cable, but he knows he's done a very bad thing. And that's why he's so irritable. He's got the belligerence of a man who knows he's in the wrong. Well, I wouldn't have crashed the car if we hadn't been driving to see your parents. And he's been frantically tweeting Ed Miliband, looking for a coalition with Miliband. next time round. And it just shows what a bunch of tarts the Liberals are. I know the West Country is a Lib Dem stronghold, but they are a bunch of dreadful tarts, really. They're anybody's, frankly. And the Lib Dems always depict themselves as being above the grubby fray of politics. They're somehow above it all. And they've always attacked the other parties for their funding bases. And now, of course, Labour are especially in the frame, everyone having a go at Labour for being in the pay of the unions. But the thing is, Labour are supposed to be in the pay of the unions. That was the whole idea of the Labour Party. It was founded by the unions to do their bidding. There's no embarrassment about that. That's what they're supposed to do. Labour are supposed to be in the pay of the unions, and the Conservatives are supposed to be in the pay of big business, and Liberals are supposed to be in the pay of well-meaning, bewildered people with food allergies. But of course, there's no real difference between any of them, because they all basically accept the primacy of the market. They all basically agree that we have to accept capitalism. But I think Ed Miliband, bless him, knows it doesn't work, capitalism, but he's terrified of saying it out loud, which is why he just fills up the day talking unending shit just to avoid saying the one terrible truth that capitalism... Of course he knows it doesn't work. He was brought up in North London by emigre Marxist intellectuals. His whole life was a ferment of anti-capitalist thought. Eric Hobsbawm would come on his birthday and give him a fuzzy felt capital accumulation game, and you know, his mum kept a drawer full of dialectical material. It's one for the old people. And so he knows it, and I think the Tories secretly know it doesn't work. Of course they do, because it's what they do for a living. They know it doesn't work, which is why they're so belligerent about defending it, you know. So don't touch it, it works as long as you... Oh, don't interfere. Oh, look, it's gone wrong. You've looked at it, that's what's happened. They know it doesn't work because it's what they do. The same way that genuinely religious people don't believe in God, because they've read the book, you know. But the people... I mean, you'd think everyone, surely everyone, accepts now that capitalism doesn't work, because you can see what happens, you know, with the banking. Anytime anything gets outsourced to G4S or A4E or any combination of letters and numbers, it's a disaster. Because the thing about the private sector is simply incompetence combined with greed. At least the public sector is well-meaning incompetence. Human beings are fundamentally incompetent. It's only our motivation that varies. But of course, under the last government, they were obsessed with the idea, if you want to improve, and of course this is what the battle that all the hospitals are like Royal Brompton, anywhere are having. People think, if you want to improve it, involve the private sector. And Brown was mad on this idea. Problems in schools involve the private sector. Problems in hospitals involve the private sector. That's like saying, well, we've got a few problems in our relationship. Let's have a word with these pimps. They seem to know a great deal about that sort of thing. I mean, you know, some things are done better in the private sector. I mean, coffee, basically, is considerably better. Yeah, it is, I'd have to admit, because when the railways were publicly owned, there was one jar of mellow birds for the entire network, and it was invariably stranded at Crewe. Today, when you turn up at a train station, you feel like a coffee. There's invariably decent coffee on the platform. There might be one of those little carts, those little vans with coffee out the back, or a pumpkin. Sometimes even on the intercity trains, you get proper ground coffee bean coffee in the buffet carriage, which is fantastic if that's your reason for taking a train. It seems an elaborate alternative to a cafetiere and a rather expensive way of having coffee, but if that's why you get trains, you'll be delighted by the bracing effect of market forces. If your main hope is that the train is going to stay on those metal things that run along the ground, you'll lean towards renationalisation. If you turn up at a hospital dying for a cup of coffee, you'll think, oh, good, Costa's in the atrium. If, however, you turn up at a hospital just dying, you'll hope it's an NHS hospital, because private hospitals don't have A&E. You turn up at a private hospital complaining of severe chest pains, all they can do is give you some breasts. You know, one or two depending on your credit rating. Yeah, but as I say, the Tories know in their hearts that capitalism doesn't work, and I think Miliband knows it doesn't work, because he must. He's a second generation Marxist. He knows it doesn't work. The people who don't know capitalism doesn't work are the Liberal Democrats. Bless them, because they're unfailingly optimistic about stuff. They just think things will just kind of get better because they just will, and they take heart from things. The Liberals, you know, they say, "Oh, I noticed Richard Branson doesn't wear a tie." Well, that's a sign of progress, isn't it? I mean, if we could get him into a cagoule, then collectivist ideas would be a thing of the past. And they get excited by good customer service, because capitalism does change. It changes to seem more humane. You know, like when you go to a supermarket, and don't pretend just because you live in Devon you don't go to supermarkets. We bloody know you don't shop local, you go to a big Tesco's. Don't try and fool us. If you go to a supermarket now and you say, could you tell me where the pickled onions are? In the old days, they'd say aisle 13. Now they physically take you there. And Liberal Democrats would love it. They'd say, this is fantastic. This is like having a mountain guide on a charity trek in the Himalayas. And I hate it, because you know they've been ordered to do it. It's not because they're allowed to express themselves and show their free will and they're happy with their terms and conditions and that's reflected in their charm. It's not that. They've been ordered. They don't want to take you. You say, could you tell me where the pickled onions are, please? And they go, yeah, follow me. And you think, don't look at me like that. It's not my idea. You know, if I wanted us to go for a walk together, I'd suggest the Peak District. And as I say, if people... I like when shop assistants express themselves. You know, there used to be a lady in Brixton Tesco's, not the one on Tulse Hill, not the petrol garage one, the big one. You know what I mean? On Acre Lane behind the town hall. You know, yeah, okay. The big Tesco's in Brixton, yeah. No, in there used to be a lady on the tills. And what would happen is you'd be queuing up with your stuff and she'd say, how are you doing, darling? Because she's from Lowestoft. And she'd say, how are you doing, darling? And you'd say, oh, I'm all right, how are you doing? And you'd expect some corporate spiel she'd been given to say. But instead of that, she'd say, I'm fine because the Lord Jesus is in my life. And I thought, oh, that's brilliant. I love that. I'm not one of those belligerent atheists who says, oh, no, we must separate church from retail. I thought, no, she should be allowed. She should be allowed to celebrate her religion and express it. That's a lovely thing. And then one day I went in. I used to look forward to this because I like the Christian lady. And one time I got in her line and I got up to the thing and I said, well, how are you today? Expecting her whole thing. And it wasn't, you know, she didn't overdo it. She didn't ram it down your throat. She didn't say, have you got a divine reward card or anything like that. She was lovely. So I was all waiting for it and I said, so how are you today? And she just went, okay. And I thought, oh no, there's been a complaint, hasn't there? She's been got at. She's been silenced. And I wanted to say, look, we can't speak here. Meet me in the cafe next to the bookshop on Kropotkinstrasse in 15 minutes and come alone. Because as you know, I'm a non-believer, the same as many of you, and of course Franny and Adam. But I'm not an angry unbeliever. I like religious people. I like religion. You know, I'm not one of those belligerent atheists like Richard Dawkins. He's a militant atheist. I'm a moderate atheist. He's a Jehovah's I never saw nothing. And the thing about Dawkins has a guilty secret. He used to be a happy clappy, which is why he hates religion so much. He's rebelling against his former self. I was Church of England. Can't even say you lapsed, really, can you? C of E, you don't lose your faith, you just can't remember where you left it. But all my friends who are ex-Catholics, they loathe the Catholic Church. They hate it. They're dirty, flippin' thieving gangsters they are. The money they have in that place, the Vatican, and that's laundered mafia money. You know that, with the banker hanging under the bridge, and they flaunt that in Africa, where people are desperate for condoms, and they're stopping them using condoms, and they're sheltering paedophiles. All right, steady on, Father. They gave you a job. Calm down. But as I say, the Liberals believe that capitalism works, and the Tories don't, and that's the reason their relationship survives. In the same way that children look up to adults until they figure out that we're full of shit. He knows already. Okay, but there's reasons why the coalition is fracturing, but it's boring reasons. It's basically Europe and the Constitution. Because Conservatives love a row with Brussels, because upsetting foreigners is second only to killing them in stimulating, the pleasure centres of the Conservative Party. Whereas Liberal Democrats love anything to do with Europe. Oh, God, anything, they love it. The voting systems, the cheese, the whole driving force of the Liberal Democrats is the vast superiority of French campsites. Obviously, I'm not talking about proper, solid West Country Liberals who are happy with a good cheddar, a thermos and a wet walking holiday reading a biography of Joe Grimman. And the great thing about liberals is liberals do believe in democracy, whereas we on the left are ambivalent about it, really. We pay lip service to it, but privately can't help but suspect that people are too stupid to understand the very high regard that we have for them. And Tories don't believe in democracy. They never really got used to the idea. They used to like the old House of Lords when it was handed, everything was handed from father to son. They liked things hereditary, land, property, disorders. But liberals, they love anything to do with voting. Oh, I don't know what to think. Do you think we should ask the public? Oh, I don't know. Do you think we should ask the public? Well, perhaps we should vote on that. That's a good idea. Let's vote on whether we should ask the public. Oh, yes, but which voting system should we use? Should we use AV or STV? Oh, I don't know. What's STV? Sexually transmitted vote. Good idea. Get your waterproofs off. And the relationship now is quite toxic. Bert Clegg is in this very weird situation, and his own party hates him, the country hates him, and of course the Tories hate him, because the Tories think that the Liberals are actually running the coalition. The right-wing Tories, the backbenchers, think that the Liberals are in charge. And many of the right-wing Tories are from humble backgrounds, and so they hate the leadership for being posh, because they think that's why they're not really tough. They haven't had to struggle, and Cameron and Clegg, and they're all from the same sort of public school background, and everything was handed to them on a plate. They never had to trample on anyone to get where they are, because the trampling had all been done for them generations ago, And that's often the most right-wing people in the Tory party are the ones from humble backgrounds, like Nadine Dorries. People like David Davis and Norman Tebbit and Liam Fox, self-made men who never read the instructions properly. And what happened to Liam Fox? You remember he was disgraced over his imaginary friend who was real, who kept appearing everywhere, And you know what he did? He went off to America, where he was hired as a senior advisor to the Mitt Romney campaign. Thank Christ for that, eh? Because he saved us a Third World War, that man. And because you couldn't have a Mormon in the White House. Apart from anything else, they don't drink tea and coffee halfway through the afternoon. He doze off, hit his head on the button and blow the bloody world up. But anyway, point being is, he's a proper right-winger, is Liam Fox, you see, so he supports the Republicans. Cameron not bothered, really. I don't think David Cameron really believes in anything much. He just likes Obama because he's always wanted to have a friend who's black. And it was the only way he was ever going to get one, really, wasn't it? Through the UN, basically. And he's always been suspicious of Fox, because Fox is a working-class boot boy who believes in stuff. Because the thing about Liam Fox is not only is he from a working-class background, he's also Scottish. Now, if you are working class, okay, and you are Scottish, and you are a Tory, you're pretty flipping hard. Because you've been an outcast all your life. They don't have Conservatives in Scotland anymore. They're pretty much extinct, which is why they're hunted on behalf of overseas collectors like Mitt Romney. They don't have constituencies for them. They have to come down here. Liam Fox's constituency is in Somerset, in some village called Little Bigot on the necks of the poor. And Michael Gove, of course, is in Surrey. Now, Gove's an interesting fellow because Gove is a public school boy but on a scholarship. His dad was an Aberdeen fish merchant. And many of you will know that Michael Gove was actually adopted and never found out who his birth father was. And it makes you wonder, considering his adoptive father is a fish merchant, whether one night a basket was just found outside the shop and ever after there were late night conversations between mum and dad. Do you think we did the right thing adopting Michael? Of course we did. What do you mean? Do you not think maybe we should have thrown him back? Because he's part fish. Look at him. Come on. He's one of the mutant haddock people. He's a product of some nuclear discharge into the North Sea that, God. And he started wearing his glasses again. He stopped for a bit because he thought it would make him more popular. And somebody must have said, look, Michael, the glasses were never the problem. Because people do that. They say to you, oh, do you think I should stop wearing my glasses? And you say, well, I don't know. I've never seen you without glasses. What do you look like? And they take them off and you go, oh my God, that's a lot of your face all in one go. Jesus, but you can't say, no, please just put them on, because basically you're saying anything that acts as a barrier between your head and the outside world has to be a good thing. And I actually like glasses, especially on women, okay? Because women can go from librarian to vixen with one toss of their hair. But he's popular among the Tories, Michael Gove. And the bizarre thing is, the reason why is partly because he's comparatively earthy. Oh, and incidentally, did you know that Osborne is known as the oik in the cabinet because he only went to St Paul's and not Eton. He's considered to be quite common. And Gove is a horny-handed son of toil. But they like him because, bizarrely, though it might seem, all the Tory leadership claim to be huge fans of punk rock. I know it's sick-making because they're not allowed to be fans of punk rock because they're Tories. They're not allowed, but they all say they love punk. All of them, Cameron, Osborne. And I heard a terrible thing about Osborne. I was talking to Billy Bragg, and Billy Bragg told me he once ran into George Osborne in a TV studio, and Osborne started quoting Billy Bragg's lyrics because it turns out George Osborne is a huge fan of Billy Bragg. I suppose it's the equivalent of plantation owners going out onto the veranda to listen to the slaves sing, isn't it? My, these lefties sure have rhythm. Pour me a mint julep weller. But he's a strange character, Gove, because he tries to convince us that he's not an extremist, he's a pragmatist. And in evidence of that, he says, you can tell I'm a pragmatist because I'm a huge admirer of Tony Blair. How much more of a right-wing mentalist than Tony Blair could you possibly get? Because it was Blair who started the marketisation of health and of education and the whole academies programme, and now we've got the free schools, and you've just got complete chaos in education. The only thing that's uniting, it's going to be every school does its own thing, have their holidays when they want, random terms and conditions. It's organised chaos, but the only thing uniting it will be that they all have to bow to Michael Gove. It's privatisation plus dictatorship, like Pinochet's Chile, except there'll be no sports grounds into which to herd his opponents because he's closed them all. And, we need to talk about Michael. If you're going to let a man like that into schools, just give him archery lessons and have done, I mean, in American schools, they fear a lunatic with an AK-47. In this country, it's Gove. It's terrifying. And his mantra is parental choice. Now, surely those of you who are parents must admit that parental choice is a terrible idea. Because look at the bloody mess you've made of it. Come on. The whole point of education is to rescue children from the clutches of their parents. Because parents are like colonial powers. You mess them up as much as you possibly can before independence. All right, here's the thing. Now, there will be people here among you who have decided that your child was not being stretched. Because your child's very bright. Oh, yes. Tabitha's very bright. Oh, yes, she's very bright. Yes, she's much brighter than the other children. Yes, I think that's why she misbehaves, because she's so bright that she's bored. Yes, see, I think she's brighter than all the other children in her class, and that's why she sets fire to them. Oh, yes. And she's so bright, you bite the bullet and you put her in a private school. I know that some of you have done this. I'm not angry with you. I'm just disappointed. And you'll get all defensive and say, oh no, you have to do the best for your child. Yes, you must always put your child first. Yes, you must always put your child. Your child must come first. And if you have more than one, well then you pick the best and use the others for bone marrow. Oh, yes. Oh. I know you've got to do right by your kids, but how far are you prepared to go clearing a path for your child? I mean, your child will be quickest to the top of the slide if you pick off the fat kids with a crossbow. But what about their rights? Anyway, it's 6:45 in the morning now. And we have got a surprise appearance from the Rolling Stones to come. I know we haven't. Because they'd never be able to get back up that slope, let's be honest. No, I did see them and I thought they were marvellous. But it's Glastonbury. But there is something a bit embarrassing about him. I mean, I think at Mick Jagger's age, he ought to be sitting on a bench swearing at pigeons, really. Because that's what, when I'm 70, that's what I want to be. I want to be curmudgeonly old bollocks sitting in the park being abusive to people and smelling of cider,